All right, what's going on Patriots Corner podcast tonight? I am joined by American hero and former GRS agent John Tig Tiegen. John, what is going on, sir?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just hanging out in the Dallas area.
The Dallas area, Texas. I'm a huge fan of Texas. Wonderful state, beautiful country too.
Yeah, Texas is a huge fan of mine too. I'm always down here.
I figured a state like that would love you, John. We love you in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania too, and the whole country loves you. For your service and everything that you've done for the country. You have an incredible story, and um, it was just that night in Benghazi. Even leading up to it, because that's what I want to start off with. In the interview, where did all this motivation, even military related, come from originally?
It's just I don't know. I think I was just kind of born with it. I had some family members that were in the military, World War II and stuff like that, but I didn't even know about that until after I was out. Growing up in Iowa, I lived across the street from a recruiting station, and I used to always hang out there all the time after school because I had nothing else to do. And this is like between first and like third grade. So, because back then you didn't have to have parents, didn't have to walk you to school. You just kind of walked by yourself all the time. But then we moved to Colorado, and Colorado Springs, they have all the military bases. So I don't know. I just say it's just something I just wanted to do all the time.
So did you, living in Colorado, I had the opportunity with my family to go out west. I was in Cody, Wyoming, and the country out there is beautiful. Did you grow up, very outdoorsy, hunting, fishing, stuff like that?
Didn't really, it never really went hunting, but I was always outside. I did fishing a little bit, but mainly I did a lot of camping and just wandering around the woods for the most part. I mean,
Wow, so from there, you joined the United States Marines. You're a former United States sergeant in the United States Marine, if I'm not mistaken. Is right?
yep.
Okay, and your time as a Marine, what was that like? That's a high title. That's elite brotherhood as well. I have a few friends who are active duty Marines, and it's a huge honor to be a Marine. So what was that like for you as a former sergeant?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I never saw any combat at all when I was in the Marine Corps, though, because, I was in 95 and 99. So I was just right in between both Gulf Wars. But I really enjoyed it. I became an infantry squad leader pretty quick. I made sergeant in 3 years. And I enjoyed every bit of it. I was stationed out in 29 Palms, which is, kind of one of the worst duty stations you can get, especially as an infantry, because you do nothing but go in the field. But on top of that, it's all live fire. We never shot any, blanks. It was all live fire exercises. So that's a huge benefit from being stationed out there. But
Wow, now
I
that
probably
is. Oh, go on. I'm sorry.
sorry. No, I mean I probably would have stayed in, but ended up getting married, and my wife, as we got married, I was kind of getting out and she was going in. So, and they don't really station Army and Marines together very often. So I kind of got out and became an Army dependent.
Well, I have to ask this question, John. You saying I had no idea that how you just said that you never saw any combat as a Marine, and then you went over to private military contracting.
Yeah.
Now that jump, what was that like? What was going through your head? Because I know you participated. From what I read, you were in Blackwater. If that's something that you can elaborate on, if not, I understand. But how do you make that jump from not having seen combat as a Marine to then jumping, to private security?
Well, I mean, a lot of guys, if you really don't join the Marine Corps for the education purposes. You actually join for defending your country. So to me, when I joined the Marine Corps, it was mainly to go to combat. So jumping over to being from not seeing combat to doing private security, it was to me it was easy. It was just something that felt natural. But in between the times, I was actually doing heating and air conditioning while the wife was in the military. When I found out about contracting because she got stationed in Kuwait with another company on Camp Doha called CSA. That's how I found about contracting. But I mean, it was an easy jump for me. I just something I wanted to do.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, to jump even farther into your life and the story that you're able to tell to Benghazi, how did you know? Were you sent to protect the annex at Benghazi? Did they brief you on this before that you were chosen to go and protect this secret location that the CIA was running?
Yeah, I mean, it's how it kind of. I mean, you're not really chosen. You just kind of fall into things once you get up there. Because at this time, I wasn't working for Blackwater no more. I was actually working directly through the agency. I didn't have a company in between no more. So I mean, that was my fourth trip in Libya. That was my third trip actually in Benghazi. So I mean, I already knew the area. I was there before they had actually killed Gaddafi or any of his sons. I was there pretty early on, but for that final trip there, I mean, it's actually compared to how it was when I first got there. It was really calm. The people enjoyed us being there compared to any other Muslim country I've ever been to. They'd actually come and shake our hands. It was just the weirdest, oddest thing. I mean, just totally didn't expect it. But that's just kind of how you get there. You pretty much just fall in. I don't think you really get picked. Oh, we want this guy to go here. I think they just kind of put a name down and you go.
Yeah. Now, before you did go to Benghazi to protect, when you were with the agency to protect the compound, were you at all ever fearful, to get even a little political now, because I'm not a Hillary Clinton supporter. I'm not a fan of her at all. Were you ever nervous that she was running this entire operation, or is that something that you didn't even know at the time?
Well, I mean, she doesn't. I mean, she was running, the State Department. She didn't run the agency. But if it was just us that got attacked and not the consulate, nobody had ever heard of it. I mean, it never would have came out. I mean, for doing contracting for 10 years, I mean, it wasn't the first time, the agency's been attacked. It's just, it really, you only heard about two of them. You have the Coast incident and now this one. So, I mean, there's always, I mean, we get attacked, not all the time, but, more often than a lot of people would think. And you just don't really hear about
it. And if you could just touch on the primary reason for you guys being there, since I have you on Patriots Corner now, I'd like to ask you directly if you could share what was the primary reason for all of for you guys being there, because I know I've read it in the news and articles and seen on media, but obviously, would you have a different perception or opinion on why you guys were there?
I mean, not knowing what I know, now, but for us at the time, we're going after terrorist organizations. We're going after trying to disrupt the training camps that were set up. I mean, Derna, the terrorists are setting up training camps down in Derna to actually move into Egypt and over to the Middle East. We're tracking down, surface-to-air missiles, trying to get those off the streets. Gaddafi, he flooded the streets with all kinds of guns. So, we were buying back guns, but they do that everywhere, especially everywhere the State Department is. They're always buying back the guns to get them off, get them away from the bad guys, especially the surface-to-air missiles. And, we're there to help, also trying to help the local government get set up. I mean, the agency was a big part of, get the initial security council set up for Libya. And, it was just a multiple things. It wasn't just one thing. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that goes on.
Now, how you said buying back guns, I want to jump into the movie because I have seen 13 Hours. I just watched it again last night. It's one of my favorite films. And and I do have to ask, during, how truthful was the movie in connection to what truly happened on that night?
for that night, it's probably about, I'd say about 70% accurate.
Okay. Now, as far as earlier on in the movie, how you mentioned buying back guns, did you guys actually have a meetup with those guys who, I don't know where they were from, even they from, Africa or I had no idea. But during that scene in the movie, when they come, and there's a kind of a confrontation, and guys are getting a little bit weary of what's going to happen. This guy's coming and he's screaming all sorts of types of stuff. Did that actually take place?
I mean, if it did, I wasn't there. Is it possible? Yeah, but not definitely would not have happened like that.
Okay, I
There's no way
understand.
that they're not going to bring a big truck full of stuff. I mean, it just doesn't happen. But it's a good Hollywood movie. Good for a Hollywood movie. But it's if when they do stuff like that, it's way more low key.
Now, when you were in Benghazi and how you mentioned how you had been there before to Libya, you said that the people seemed to be happy that you guys were there. They were coming up to you and they were thanking you. Now, when you were there this time, did you at all ever in your own head start to think that there's maybe something a little different going on? Maybe some people are starting to keep their distance. There might be something that could possibly happen.
I mean, when you walked around town, not really. If you go because we always went out to the shops and went to the restaurants and coffee shops. For the most part, I mean, those kind of people always stay the same, but you can notice a different kind of attitude on the streets, and you can start noticing more of the traditional Muslims were coming in. I guess the extremes, where they were, and always the man jammies. A lot of locals out there, they didn't wear that stuff. They wore normal westernized clothes and stuff like that. A lot more, I guess, traffic incidents were going on, even with us, but even with the locals. And, you start seeing the Al Qaeda flags were coming in flying. And so, I mean, you could see the insurgents were moving in. Actually, probably at the end of my second trip, you could see it starting to come in quite a bit. And by then, Derna had actually been completely taken over by Ansar al-Sharia. And, you're just kind of hoping that they wouldn't have moved all the way into Benghazi, but they did.
And did you guys have any type of way of picking up that they were moving in? I mean, as far as even with the movie, scenes when they're kind of watching you guys, little did these guys know, at least in my opinion, that they're already being watched by America's most elite. You guys are elite soldiers who are there protecting the annex. Did you have any type of pickup that something was going to take place other than just seeing that the Al Qaeda flags, were starting to show more and the more traditional Muslim was starting to come in as well?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we're getting, obviously they get assets, they're getting intel that there's, certain stuff going on. And, the local government offices, I mean, they were getting attacked. Some of the government officials were getting kidnapped. And, USAID, they got attacked. The British ambassador, he got attacked. And it wasn't for the GRS guys that were there. One of his security team guys would have died. So, I mean, we're seeing stuff, on a regular basis. A lot of people don't realize the consulate prior to 9/11 got attacked twice prior to that. And, you knew something. It was leading up to something. You just didn't know when it was going to happen.
Now, as far as before the attacks happened, did you go over to see the ambassador's compound? Because in the movie, and I hate to keep referencing back to the movie, it's not all that I'm going off of, trust me, but I did do my research. But as far as checking out the ambassador's compound and stating that they were fearful that there was not enough support to protect the ambassador, is that true? Was that true that there was kind of like, shit, we might be, if something does happen, something bad could happen here?
I mean, yeah, we did that months prior to the ambassador coming. I mean, even on my first trip when we were talking to the state guys that were there, we were always going over there. at any given time, there'd only be like 2 guys protecting that compound. So, we always told them, if something happens, we're going to come and help. We're going to find a way. We'll come over there and help you. And, the second time it got attacked, I was there that night when that one happened. I believe it was in April of 2012, and they blew a big hole in the wall. And at that time, there's only 2, and this was about 1 in the morning, and there was only 2 guys there to protect that compound. So it kind of tells you the mentality of the State Department. Even when the ambassador wasn't coming in, they still only had 2 guys, and that was it.
So why would that be?
They knew. People. It's kind of funny how a lot of, I guess you want to call them Democrats, or liberals, whatever. They always say, well, they cut the budget of the State Department for security. No, they didn't. Even if they did, you allocate where security is needed. Instead of sending $2 million worth of TVs to France, why don't you send $2 million worth of security to Benghazi? I mean, just because you cut money somewhere, you cut it somewhere else that doesn't, but why they did that, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, those guys were always asking for more support, and they just never got it.
And do you feel personally, on like a personal level, that the reasoning that they did not give the support was that they trusted that this country was filled with peaceful people who were calm and collective and, maybe not 100% peaceful and calm, obviously. You'd hope that there's some sense of brains in her and the former president as well, who I'm not a fan of. But why would they, that just makes, it puzzles me as why they would not send more support. And how you mentioned that there was only 2 guys there protecting the ambassador in the compound, why they would not think that there needs to be more men there. And thank God for you guys who were willing to go and knew at your own head to go if something was going to happen. But it just puzzles me as why they wouldn't think that more support or, security would be necessary.
Well, I mean, as for the 2 guys, the ambassador wasn't there that night with just the 2 guys. It was just a principal officer. So, but they really, I think they put a lot of faith in the 17th February Martyrs Brigade. And they had known ties to Ansar Sharia, which is the same militia same terrorist group that attacked the consulate. But a lot of the mindset with a lot of the people that I've noticed over the time, they started going back to they're my friend kind of thing. I know he was part of the Taliban, but he's giving me information, so he's my friend. You're paying somebody, hundreds of thousands of dollars to give you information. They're not your friend, for one. That's just the kind of the mentality that the State Department and some of the agency started going towards, was everybody was their friend. The agency kind of got a wake-up call when the Coast incident happened. But the State Department, that's just their mentality. Everybody's a friend. You got to trust everyone. They don't want to offend anybody, even though everybody always offends us, no matter what it is.
Which is horrible, which I hate, yeah.
And then go back to, I'm going to say it, the administration was stupid. I mean, they wanted to go and trust the Muslim Brotherhood to run Egypt. I mean, they helped them get into power. I mean, what does that tell you? They're, as well as they'll just go put Hitler back in power.
Yeah.
That's just how, I don't know what they're thinking could have been.
Now, the 17 February guys who were working, with the department, they did. I'm sure there were some of those guys who were playing both sides of the fence. I don't know if that was true or not. Was that the type of stuff you were dealing with as well?
Yeah, they had actually, because the 17th Feb, they were actually guarding the whole entire compound at one point in time. And I think a month prior, they actually, I wouldn't say fired, but pretty much got rid of about 90% of them, because they were doing the outer security as well. But when they hired the Blue Mountain Group, they ended up getting rid of all those guys. And, and you fire. The thing is, people just think, you fire them and you give them a severance pay. that ain't how they look at it. You fire them, it's a totally 100% disrespect, and they take it very personal. And that's what happened the second time they got attacked. Was they fired a local guard, and he ended up blowing the hole in the wall. I mean, that's how personal they take it. So I
He ended
think,
up committing a terrorist attack. What would be considered, right?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, he was. I mean, that's. I mean, but they take it that personal. So they laid off half, 90% of the security, and it pissed them off, and they probably were. I wouldn't say all of them, because we knew a couple of the guys that were actually in 17 Feb, and we ran into them and talked to them quite a bit, but it was just a group of guys who got together, helped overthrow Gaddafi, and they had nothing else to do. They have really no loyalty whatsoever to anything. So,
and as far as them being fired, why were they getting fired? Was it for budget cuts, or was it for payment issues, or because they were finding out that these guys were providing the bad guys with info?
no, I don't. I think it's just the way the State Department does things. I mean, they just move. They're always just going forward with stuff, and that was just one of them. They were trying to make a permanent consulate, because at the time they were calling it a special mission or something. But they were just trying to do things so quick, and I think a lot had to do with the elections coming up. They wanted it to be like, their Hillary and Obama's little baby, I guess. They could have compared that to the Iraq situation and say, well, look what Bush did, look what we did, kind of thing. So they're trying to move it forward way too fast, and they hired a company that is what they did. They put out an ad in the local paper for security, and so a bunch of just whoever came out got hired. I'm pretty sure the vetting process is probably about as good as TSA security process, and all kinds of people slipped through. And I think it was more of an inside job with the Blue Mountain group than the 17 Feb group initially. But the 17 Febs did end up joining forces with Ansar al-Sharia about a month or so after we left.
That is insane. And I don't even know what's more insane, that they're possibly them putting out an ad, in the paper looking for security, and these guys in a country, and, like you said before, it is a shame that, and in today's light, everything's got to be so politically correct, which at times I do not agree with. And, I'm a conservative. But I just have to say that I find that so nuts, how they would be okay with guys in that country where there's been malicious activity and anti-American activity. Just, yeah, sure, come on, off the street, we're going to pay you, you're going to be security for the compound. That is just wild to me.
I mean, I find it. I mean, the fact that they didn't do the background check on the individuals, they let a third party do it. I think that's just the dumbest, stupidest thing ever. I mean,
and what was the third party who was doing it? Do you know who the third party was, or?
I think it just whoever Blue Mountain used. I think it was like a UK company or something like that.
Oh my God! And did that ever get traced back to that company, as questioning as what the hell was going on here?
I'm not sure, but I think Mike Rogers' wife kind of had it like a link with the company, and I think that's how that company got it.
That's insane to me, and yeah, that one that just makes me dislike both of them even more than I already did. I've not liked them ever. But leading up to the attacks that night, what was going through your mind when you got the call that the ambassador was in danger and that the compound was under attack?
I mean, I don't think any of us were really surprised, because before he showed up, all of us got together and we said he's going to get attacked while he's down here.
So you knew it already that there's something was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, he had zero security. and the guys that were down there really were not trained to really handle that kind of environment with the U.S. ambassador. I mean, yeah, they'd be good with the normal, you know, person, just driving somebody somewhere to go get coffee, but to do security for the U.S. ambassador, which is, it's that's a big target.
Yeah, usually don't they have marine? They have active duty Marines there at embassies, don't they?
At embassies, yes, not at consulates.
Got it. Understand.
But even then, at that point in time, if there was Marines there, they wouldn't have cared if the ambassador was in peril or not. All they're worried about is classified information, personnel, or secondary.
Wow.
He would have probably died anyways.
So their main goal would be to protect the information within that consulate.
At that time, yes. But since then, since a lot of it come out and a lot of congressmen and senators found out, which I don't know how they didn't know for decades, but that kind of changed where they're now also in the business of saving people, I guess.
Now, the guys protecting the ambassador at the consulate, were they former military or special operations military or diplomatic security?
No, I believe the only one guy had military experience at the time, and that was Dave Ubben. He's the one he was up on the roof with Rowan, Oz, and Bub and got blown up.
Okay, and the other guys were just security contractors, or?
No, they weren't even contractors. They were State Department employees, so even less trained. Because at least all the contractors, from last thing I knew, you had to have military experience or some sort of law enforcement experience. The guy, I think Scott, he came from Passport Investigations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you another mindset of, how the State Department thinks of security and how normal people think of security.
Excuse my language. It seems like the State Department really doesn't give a shit as long as that person who's making the decision is not there having to do the protecting.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, look what happened to was it Cheryl Mills or whatever? I think that was actually in charge of security. Wasn't it? Yeah. What happened to her? She got promoted.
Wow. So, yeah.
Kind of, you screw up, you move up.
Now, during the attacks, if you could walk me through what happened with what you can, elaborate on. What went on? From that first move, did you guys go and start briefing and, getting the weapons that you were going to be needing and figuring out the plan? Like I said, I've watched the movie, but you were there and it would be amazing to hear from you. What really truly happened?
Once we got the call, we kind of, a lot of stuff was already pre-planned. We do a lot of pre-planning and a lot of what ifs. Unfortunately, the team that I had prior, we did a couple what ifs if the consulate got attacked, but the team that I was with there, we didn't really have a chance or time to do a what if. So, but you got two SEALs, 3 Marines, and a Ranger. We kind of really didn't have to communicate too much in the beginning. We eventually ended up going over there. We did get told to stand down by the chief of base. But once the radio call said, hey, if you guys don't get here now, we're all going to die, we immediately left, got over there. It took us about another 30 minutes from that point to move on to the compound. In the movie, the attackers, when we're trying to move on to the compound, it wasn't that intense. I mean, there was about a handful of guys shooting down the road at us. I moved up with the grenade launcher, lobbed 3 rounds down, and that dispersed the guys outside the gate, which allowed myself, Roan, and Jack to move down the road into the consulate. While DB and Tonto were trying to, get higher ground to try to see if they can see inside the compound. But little did we know, that's another bad thing about the State Department. Their communication with us sucked. Once the thumper went off and dispersed the guys out front, it also dispersed everybody inside the compound. So everybody was gone. So instead of them getting on the radio and saying, "Hey, everybody's gone," we could have moved up there a lot faster and probably still saved Sean Smith. I mean, you don't know, but you know, seconds, minutes count. You know, in situations like that, because he died of smoke inhalation. If we'd have known, we could have just dead sprinted all the way on there and started helping searching for Sean Smith and the ambassador. But that extra 30 minutes, could have cost both their lives. But the 25 minutes at our compound, not that I believe, got both of them killed. Um, we moved on, got the compound cleared, started searching for the ambassador because we couldn't locate him. The State Department guys, they didn't know if he had been already kidnapped or if he got out a window and took off or if he was actually still inside the building. Because the guy who was protecting him ended up leaving him in the building. When he came out of the building, he passed out from the smoke inhalation. So he had no idea what happened either. As we were searching for the ambassador, we got counter assaulted. Took us probably about a good 5 minutes. We repelled that assault. And during this time, the State Department guys were gathered up, put in their vehicle. And when we got assaulted, instead of them jumping back out of their vehicle to help the 6 of us defend their compound, they took off. They were told to go left. They ended up going right. And they ended up getting ambushed by the same guys that are attacking us during the counter assault. They made it out. I mean, in the movie, they kind of showed it. The vehicle was pretty well jacked up. It was worthless after they made it to our compound. All tires were flat. You couldn't barely see out the windows. After that assault, after we repelled it, we had to make a decision to stay or go because, again, we didn't know the location of the ambassador at all. The drone was feeding back that they're getting ready to do a third assault on the consulate. Between 50 to 100 guys were moving up the road. So we made the call. We left, went back to our compound, and just kind of stood by and waited for the attacks to happen on us. And about 45 minutes later, the first one happened. This was probably pretty close to about 1 or so in the morning. After that attack ended, the team from Tripoli had finally landed in Benghazi, but the militia that was supposed to pick them up to bring them to us wasn't there. So the case officers, one of the case officers inside, he was making phone calls trying to find somebody to go pick him up. And about 45 minutes later, the second, I think it was about 45 to an hour, don't really know, but the second assault on our compound began. A lot, probably double the size, double the time. But again, we repelled them pretty quick. About 3 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone. Well, the State Department guy got a phone call and found out that the U.S. ambassador was actually at the hospital, in the Benghazi hospital, but he was pronounced dead. They had found him inside the building in his bedroom, halfway on his bed. A lot of people, the rumors about him being tortured, mutilated, and raped or shot or whatever, that never happened. Once they found him, they brought him out and started, dragging him up the road, not outside, not really like dragging him like Black Hawk Down drag, but they couldn't carry him. They're not very strong people, some of them, but they're moving him up the road, and the next door neighbor happened to be on the compound and saw him, immediately grabbed him, took him to his car, threw him in the back of the car, took him straight to the hospital. And that's where he was until we got him at the airport. But, between 3 o'clock and 5:30, the case officer found a militia that would come and go to the airport, bring that team to us. And when they did, they came in. It was about 5:30 in the morning. The whole team and the commander of the militia ended up going up inside to our command post. Within about a couple minutes, Bub, he came out, went up on the roof because he knew Roan was there and he wanted to come up and say hi. They both served together in the teams, and Roan introduced Bub to Dave Ubin and Oz, which were up on the roof. And within about 5 minutes of him being up there is when our third and final assault happened, which was with mortars. And, 3 of the mortars hit directly on the roof. Ended up injuring Dave Ubin pretty badly. His left arm, left leg almost completely severed off. He had a lot of shrapnel up in the head area. Oz, almost lost his left hand. Same thing. He had a bunch of shrapnel, and ended up killing Rowan and Bub. And about 7:30, so about 2 hours after that attack, about 7:30, the main militia of this commander ended up coming down to our compound, the escort us to the airport. And the funniest thing about the militia, they were called the Libyan Shield, but they were Gaddafi loyalists. So the same regime that we helped overthrow and kill came and saved our lives. Because I honestly believe if they didn't get us out of there, we'd all probably been killed.
Wow. That is, it's chilling, the story, and it's all leading up to behind the minds of people who were, you would thinking so disrespectfully towards you guys. And even to back up a little bit, I did read an article that elaborated on Hillary Clinton's stand down or potential stand down order. And in the article, it said that there were guys who were ready to go and support you guys, and they were not allowed to go. What was up with that?
I mean, these politicians, they're freaking stupid. I mean, they sit there and they want to tell the public one thing, but we're there, and the guys that you got 2 Navy SEALs. You don't think they're buddies that are still working? You had one guy, Roan. He did 20 years in the SEALs. You don't think dudes are going to talk to him if he, I mean, I got guys from fast companies, SIF companies. I got pilots. I got drone pilots. I got generals that come and they talk. I mean, they tell us everything. I mean, for these politicians and for Obama and Hillary to believe that, nobody will talk. People are going to talk. You just let 4 Americans die and you watched it on the drone feed and did nothing. Didn't even try to do anything. At least they probably would have tried to do something. Not everybody wouldn't be as pissed off, but the fact that they just, they made no decision whatsoever.
Now, if I could ask you this, do you think this would have totally went differently if the president was George Bush or our current commander-in-chief, President Donald Trump?
Oh, I do. I totally do.
And why do you feel that, John? And I agree with you. And I'm not military or anything, but I do agree with you.
They have more respect for life and the sacrifices that people out there actually make than these people. I mean, they truly only cared about their career, and that was it. They didn't care about nothing else.
And that's the most horrific thing is that, the same thing I actually asked to, I asked to Rob O'Neill when I had him on the show is the responses that they get, during all of this, what do they risk? Their political career. You're out there, you're risking your life for a job that you're sent to do by them, like you said before, that you don't know where, you're not chosen, you're told to go and you're going. They're only risking a political career, whether or not they'll get elected or reelected. And that's the thing that I find so puzzling, is how somebody could be so disrespectful to humans in general, and then just the military members in general, when they know that there's only a few guys they are protecting in what is a hot area.
Yeah, I mean, it was considered a high threat area. I mean, it was, just as bad as Iraq or Afghanistan.
Now, a question I do want to ask, I got, in from a veteran who emailed me or asked me to ask this question to you. What was it like for you after the fact when she was on trial and she raised her hands and said, "What difference does it make?" Because that was just aggravating as all hell to me to listen to, and I could watch it over and over, and I still will have that same form of anger that'll formulate because it's just so disrespectful. Hearing that, what was that like for you, having actually have been there? And she's raising her hands and saying that after she's just lied about everything. What was going through your head, sir?
Well, you just want to knock her out.
Yeah.
I mean, your blood's just boiling. But at the same time, I wasn't really shocked. Because again, like I said, they only care about the political career. They don't care about anything else. So, I mean, they'll lie, cheat, steal, and kill to get what they want. So,
And
you see it.
Well, go on. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I mean, you see it all over. I mean, the politicians are, they're not getting any better.
Yeah. And what was going through your head when, the whole thing with her in the beginning, or saying she didn't receive a phone call, and then saying she missed the phone call, and lies were just starting to come out. You guys are so trained, what's true and what's right and what's wrong, and here she's just trying to, excuse my language, just bullshit everything completely, as if people on the outside are stupid and they're going to believe her.
Oh yeah, I mean, once they came out with the whole video thing, we all knew everything. It's going to be nothing but bullshit coming. Sorry.
No, that's fine. This is not live, so you could say whatever you feel.
I mean, there's just going to be nothing but lies coming out from that moment on. I mean, they're going to lie about everything. I mean, look at Panetta. Panetta saying, "Well, we didn't know the situation on the ground, so we're not going to send in forces, military forces in the unknown." They had a live drone feed, and they had live, people on the ground feeding them information. They had more information and more intel than they did for the Bin Laden raid.
Wow.
So, I mean, that even was a lie. I mean, they said no U.S. forces were in the area. You had a U.S. embassy in Egypt that also became under siege. They got overran by protesters. You're going to sit there and tell me even then you weren't sending nothing over there in the area at all? You weren't standing up the Avion Air Force Base at all for that? And that would happen 8 hours prior to ours? I mean, how lackadaisy can you be?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And it's just shocking that it almost makes you think this would be the biggest, traitor act, definitely one of in history. If did you ever think that this was even possibly like a setup? That they're watching you guys get attacked by hundreds of terrorists, and no, still stand down. We're not going to send in reinforcements or support. I'm sure you had tons of thoughts going through your head after this had all happened, and finding out that everything they were saying was total BS.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too much on the big conspiracy theorists for collaborating with the terrorists that well. I mean, it happened on 9/11. I think it was pre-planned way before they even knew the ambassador was coming. I think they were going to do it whether the ambassador was there or not. They might not even really have known the ambassador was there. He just came. He came. Yeah, he did come in the day before, but if they're not paying attention to what's going on around really locally, government-wise, they may not even known he was there. It could have been, because when they found him, they had no idea who he was, and they let a neighbor take him. I mean, if you're there to kidnap the ambassador and you find the U.S. ambassador dead, we don't even know if he's dead or alive, but yet you let some neighbor grab him, throw him in a car. That kind of tells me they weren't really there to kidnap him. I mean, maybe they did. They just didn't know what he looked like, which is a very possibility. But because even if you had the body of a U.S. ambassador and you start parading that around, that's going to be huge, huge effect on the state. I mean, can you imagine them? The U.S. ambassador getting dragged up and down, then chopping his head off on freaking. God. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you imagine the impact that would have had, especially the boost they would have had for the terrorists. I mean, it would have been a huge boost for them. So that's why the whole kidnapping conspiracy thing, I just don't believe it, because They had total reign of that compound. I mean, there was hundreds of them on that compound after we left. 17 Feb left the compound, they took off. So, I mean, they could have did whatever they wanted to him, but a neighbor grabbed him and threw him in his car right in front of him and took off.
And even pops the question too: what do you think happened to that guy? I mean,
I don't probably nothing because everything happened so fast. I think he probably just took him, maybe dropped him off. I don't think he stayed. I doubt he stayed there because there's a bunch of Ansar Sharia guys that start showing up after they attacked us. They have, because we had to do an advance on the hospital. We had to know how many beds they had, what their capabilities were. They had over 30 beds, and when we were told when he got there, the hospital was completely full. The emergency room was completely full of people and that were injured. And so, so Ansar Sharia was all over that hospital. And I just don't think that guy stayed. He probably dropped him off and probably told him who it was and then took off, is my guess. I don't really know.
And did you guys have, in the movie, translator, somebody who was working with the agency, how they use in the movie, his name was Amal, and was that all factual?
Yeah, but at the end of the movie, it showed how we left him behind. He came home with us.
I was gonna say, yeah, that would have. I would only, God only knows what would happen to that guy, because just walking down that road, that was what I went to see the movie with my father, and we were, after we said it was a fantastic movie, and then went on to say how horrible and evil Hillary Clinton is. That was the next question was, what the hell happened to that guy? You have all these terrorists in the area, and he was just walking down on the street. I mean, that would have been ended badly if that had actually happened. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, he kind of played the role at the end of the movie of our gardener as well. So we have like a maintenance guy who lived on the compound with us, and he'd been living there since the guy we got the property from, and so he was an Egyptian. And the property owner took his passport, so he couldn't leave the country anyways. So I guess one of the agreement was when they got it, he would stay on the compound. But so when we left, the linguist actually playing the part of the gardener, and the gardener was actually doing that. So when Tonto said something to him like, "Hey, you guys need to square your shit away" or something like that.
Yeah,
I think something like that to him. But he was saying that actually to the gardener because the linguist left with us. But it was so all night the gardener was just out there during all the attacks, was just out there smoking a cigarette in the middle of the compound. It was freaking, yeah, it was weird. These people, it just doesn't bother them, I guess.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that was my next question was, while you guys are running down the road, was there people actually just watching the soccer game? Because it almost is like, it's crazy, but it's like crazy nutty humor, as if like, oh my god, was people really just watching the soccer game, and while there's mortars and bullets flying all over the place?
Well, after I launched the grenades towards the consulate gate, the three of us started moving down the road. About halfway in between, a guy with a cell phone and a business suit comes walking out of his house like he had no clue what was going on.
Oh.
When you lob these grenades, I mean, they're freaking loud. I mean, you can hear them for a long ways away, and they're, you can almost feel them. I mean, they're just like they're awesome. I love those things. But anyways, he's just on his phone, and he comes walking out. I think we might have freaked him out, honestly. And he's yelling in Durka Durka, and we don't speak it, so we're yelling at him to get back. We're trying to wave our hands like get back. And finally we just kind of moved on. And then after the counter assault, when I was up on the roof, and the other guys came up and joined, right across the street from where I was actually just shooting the guy with the RPG at, there's a grocery store, and we're just kind of sitting there. I just kind of look. You're just looking, and there's like families, literally just out there in front of this grocery store watching. It was just the weirdest thing. I mean, kids are running around. You can see the women, the ninja outfits, and it was just the weirdest thing.
That is
But
weird.
I mean, it was just kind of like what back in the Civil War days, when people just sit on top of the hill and have a picnic and watch the battle. You know, it's just
Yeah,
such
I
a
can only
sad.
imagine. Yeah, that would be nuts. That is crazy. And did you ever face any type of issues? Whether you could touch on this, did you ever face any type of issues afterwards, after returning home, receiving any type of threats or anything from people who now knew that you were there in Benghazi?
No, we were never told not to talk or threatened at all. I
Yeah,
mean, they made us sign a new what I guess non-disclosure agreement or something like that, whatever it was. But I mean, a couple of the guys kind of took it as kind of a threat, but that's probably like my fourth one I've signed with them, so it didn't bother me none. But they told us we could go and talk to Congress. The only difference is if we wanted to, they wanted us to go through them to talk to them, which was fine. And I actually eventually said I was the first one to come out and say I want to go talk to them. I'm tired of hearing all the bull crap on TV, especially about or all the rumors about the ambassador being tortured, raped. I mean, you would think that these guys, they knew it didn't happen,
yeah.
but yet they're not coming out and correcting it. It's just kind of like, what the hell, man? So you're letting the families and the family friends and all that stuff think that happened to them.
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine if that was your wife or son or dad, and you think that's what happened to them? That's kind of jacked up.
And even more so, I'm sure they would try to say it was protecting them or taking thoughts out of their head of what they were thinking. And here these are the people who allowed it all to happen. It all ties back to them witnessing what was going on and then denying the fact that they had no idea that any of this was going on.
Yep.
Which
Nothing.
makes me also say, imagine what the country would be like if the horrific Hillary Clinton did get presidency. That would just be, oh God, I don't know what. And after hearing this, especially, that's fear.
Yeah, that'd be a scary day for the military.
Now, John, after that, when you did decide to come out, and even seeing her deny everything, did that just kind of encourage more, talking to more people to get your point across, or was it more so of, you're going to believe me because I was there, or, if you're not going to, then it's your loss because,
I mean, of course, every time she came out and opened her mouth, and just pisses off even more. And, you know, it, how people still believe their stories. And, just like on my Facebook page, I read, I saw the new feed come back out. It, said that, oh yeah, they're watching the live drone feed in the White House. Well, we said that way back in the beginning, and I got people, some liberals that come on my Facebook page and said, "Oh, none of this really happened." I'm like, "Are you serious?"
yeah,
It's like, wow, the blind leading the blind, I guess.
yeah. And, that really hits me, and it friends of mine as well I have up here. Uh, it's just horrible to see that people would, and horrible is just a light word, honestly, and I'll keep it filtered, but it's just horrible to see that people would, it's sooner take support on somebody like that and forgive, and it just kind of almost makes you thankful that you don't have the same type of mindset that they do, because it's obviously not a care for the country, military supporters, or for, like you said, life in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, it's no big deal, or like, oh, it wasn't her that was in charge. Well, I'm sorry, if you're in the head position, sitting in the seat, it is your fault. I mean, you don't lead from the bottom up; you lead from the top down, and everything that goes wrong is your fault.
Yeah. And was this the people working with the agency at the compound? What were they like, manners wise, and their persona that they were expressing over to you guys of verbal, anything, speech, how they talk to you? Were they really, rude?
Uh, not. I mean, the female, she was kind of condescending a little bit to us because we weren't Ivy League people, I guess. But some of the other guys that I worked with, a couple trips prior, they were, laid back guys. They'd fill you in on everything. Treated you pretty much, how they treat anybody else. It was all respect. But Bob, we bashed on Bob quite a bit. Um, he's not a military guy. He was a career agency guy. He was good at what he did, but I don't think he really understood the capabilities that we could do, and that's why he didn't trust us to ever do anything security wise. He was just not. Yeah, he just didn't understand that portion of it. And you do run into some case officers that are just total asses. You really want to push them out of the car in the middle of a freaking Al Qaeda neighborhood and just keep driving. But even if they hate you, they talk crap about you, you still protect them.
Yeah, and I'm sure I pity anybody in any line of work who would talk to crap to you guys with you being right in front of them, because that only an idiot would do that, in my opinion. But
they never get in front of your face. They're very smart about that. They always went behind the door and then did it.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's even funnier that you touch on the lady being about the whole Ivy League thing with that just makes no sense to me. That's what I would say in response is just you have trained professionals, they are protecting you, and it's just incredible how people just feel entitlement over somebody else. And like I mentioned, is that you guys have done so much and went through so much training and know stuff that they would never know. But still they feel that, okay, I know what I'm doing and I know more than what you plan to do, if I worded that correctly.
Yeah, I mean, they're very, very book smart, but they're very stupid on the street. Where I'm totally opposite. I'm good on the street, not very good with the books. But
I'm the same way. I'm not a book smart guy either. But street smarts always, I feel like, definitely pay off more in the end, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But John, I want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight, sharing your story, and sharing what actually happened. That's a big thing. Even having gone through university at a liberal school, it's tough. When you listen to people who want to express what they think they know, and really they've never been there. So that's why I always like to get what really happened from military members and those who were actually there. And it was such an honor to have you on the show, and I couldn't thank you more. And thank you for your service, sir. It was amazing to have you on the show tonight.
No, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, John, you take care. Enjoy Texas. I wish I was there. It's been kind of rainy in Pittsburgh. Not too much, though. The sun's coming out a little bit, but I bet it's beautiful there. So enjoy your time in Texas, sir. And God bless. Thank you again for your service. And, yeah, thank you. I can't say it enough. Thank you, sir.